If you've been scrolling online lately, you might have seen this rumor that Dairy Queen is going bankrupt, and it kind of caused a little bit of a panic. But what if I told you the real story is not only completely different, but it actually blows the lid off a huge secret about the entire fast food industry? Okay, let's get into it. So this is the big question that's been flying around, right? Is the legendary brand behind the Blizzard, and of course the Dilly Bar, really filing for Chapter 11? Are our favorite ice cream treats in some kind of danger? All right, the short, simple, and very reassuring answer is a definite no. Dairy Queen, the parent company, is absolutely not going bankrupt. But you gotta stick with me here, because the reason this whole thing got so confusing, well, it pulls back the curtain on a really intense battle that's happening behind the scenes at your favorite restaurants. To really understand what's going on, first we need to look at how Dairy Queen is even set up as a company. Because it's not just any company, it is, for all intents and purposes, a financial fortress. So what makes them so untouchable? What's their secret weapon against the kind of financial chaos that we see hitting other parts of the industry? Well, the answer is one very, very famous name in the world of finance. And the answer is Berkshire Hathaway. Yeah, since 1997, Dairy Queen has been a wholly owned subsidiary of that legendary company run by Warren Buffett. Now, this isn't just some small detail. This is the whole ballgame. Being owned by one of the most cash-rich and financially stable companies on the entire planet gives them a level of security that is just, well, it's unheard of. And just think about the sheer scale we're talking about. The parent company, IDQ, is overseeing more than 7,700 locations in over 20 countries. So you take that massive global footprint and you combine it with the backing of Berkshire Hathaway, and a corporate-level bankruptcy becomes virtually impossible. They're just completely insulated from the drama that usually plagues the restaurant world. Okay, so if the parent company is so solid, where in the world did these bankruptcy rumors even come from? Well, it all started with some very real and very public store closures down in Texas, and that's where the confusion really kicked into high gear. In early 2025, about 30 Dairy Queen locations in Texas did in fact shut their doors. Now, for the people in those towns, this was a big deal, right? It was sudden, you noticed it, and it's easy to see how the rumor mill just started churning. But the reason for those closures, that is the crucial point. See, this wasn't a bankruptcy. It was what's called a decommissioning. And that's basically corporate speak for when the main company, the franchisor, rips up the contract with a local store owner, the franchisee, for breaking the rules. It's an enforcement action, not a financial collapse. And here's the specific reason why. The franchisee, a group called Project Lone Star, basically didn't hold up their end of the bargain. They were contractually obligated to remodel and modernize their stores, and they just didn't. Dairy Queen Corporate has really high standards, and if their operators don't invest the money to keep the stores looking fresh, the company will step in and pull the plug. Now, this is where the story takes a major, major twist. Because while the whole DQ rumor was false, the confusion out there was being fueled by a very real bankruptcy that was happening at almost the exact same time, and it involved a direct competitor. It turns out a major player in that whole frozen custard and steak burger world did file for Chapter 11 protection. And because it was in the same industry, a lot of people just mushed the two stories together, creating the perfect storm for misinformation to spread like wildfire. The company that actually filed for bankruptcy was M&M Custard, LLC. And they were a huge franchisee. They operated 32 locations for Freddy's Frozen Custard and Steak Burgers. So not Dairy Queen, but a key operator for one of their biggest rivals. Now let's look at the actual money from their bankruptcy filing, because this is wild. M&M Custard had about $5.2 million in assets. Just kind of keep that number in your head for a second. Because their liabilities, what they owed to banks, to suppliers, to everyone, totaled a staggering $27.7 million. With debts more than 5 times their assets, they were completely underwater. This was a true classic financial collapse. Okay, so we've got 2 different stories, right? A DQ franchisee getting shut down for not upgrading their stores, and a Freddy's franchisee that went bankrupt from crushing debt. So what do they have in common? Well, they both reveal this massive pressure cooker environment that I like to call the Great Franchise Squeeze. Let me break it down. The DQ franchisee in Texas, they had what you'd call a capital expenditure, or CapEx, failure. They couldn't afford that big one-time investment to remodel their stores. But the Freddy's franchisee, They had an operational expenditure, or OpEx failure. They couldn't afford the day-to-day costs of just running the business, paying the bills. See? Two totally different paths, but they both lead to failure. So let's just put this all together to make it crystal clear. At the very top, you've got the rock-solid franchisor, IDQ, totally stable. Then you have their franchisee, Project Lone Star, who got their contract terminated because of a CapEx failure, couldn't afford the big upgrades. And then, completely separately, you have the rival franchisee, M&M Custard, who filed for Chapter 11 because of an OpEx failure, just drowning in operational debt. Three very different situations that all got tangled up into one messy rumor. And as a final, totally strange curveball, the phrase Dairy Queen Chapter 11 actually does exist out there, but it's the title of a novel from 2006 about a family dealing with an emotional bankruptcy. How weirdly fitting is that? So what is the big takeaway from all this? I mean, what does this actually tell us about the state of the quick service restaurant, or QSR, industry today? Well, it all comes down to what you could call the modern franchise stress test. On one side, you've got these incredibly powerful parent companies demanding expensive, mandatory remodels. And on the other side, the local owners are battling rising costs for food, for supplies, and for labor every single day. So operators who don't have super deep pockets are getting absolutely squeezed from both directions, and it's making it harder than ever to survive. And this really leaves us with one final and really important question. You know, the fast food industry was pretty much built on the dream of the small business owner. But as the financial bar gets higher and these operational pressures just get more and more intense, can that dream even survive? It's something to think about the next time you order a Blizzard.